yet. I'm taking my book, so no problem at all. I can take yours too.
Okay, excellent.
Right. So, and as we get started for the evening, good evening and welcome to Suffering in Silence with Evangelist Tia here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Love Bay family, we're rising out of the ashes together. On tonight, we are going to continue a conversation that we started a while ago on the third gift. We have with us our co-host Jennifer Peterkin, and our guest for the evening is JD McCabe. He is an author, the author of The Third Gift, and he is a male survivor of domestic violence. Listeners, if you have any questions or comments for our guest or our co-host, you can email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com, or you can text us at 437-778-3299. And also, if you have any resources that you would like to share with us on a national or local level from your country, your community, your faith organizations, you can also email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. And with that, Jen, I would ask if you would greet our listeners and viewers on tonight.
Sure. Hello, Love Bay family. So happy and blessed to be here once again with all of you. Thank you for tuning in to Suffering in Silence. It's such an important show and about such an important topic. And we appreciate you being willing to learn. And hopefully you do learn something and you're able to take something meaningful away from it. My name is Jennifer Peterkin. I'm a domestic violence survivor and advocate. I work alongside Tia on the radio program, but also I serve on the board of her organization, Rise Out of the Ashes. And I have my own side project that I do as well called The Human Experience, where I travel the world and interview people about the stories that have shaped them. So if you want to check that out, please feel free to visit me at thehxpod.com or the HXPod on Instagram and TikTok. And JD and Tia have both been guests on the podcast, so you can
listen to
their episodes.
I was very blessed to be able to be on your podcast. So thank you. Yeah, it seems like forever ago, right?
I know.
Awesome. So JD, if you would greet our listeners and viewers on tonight.
I'd be happy to. Third time is a charm. So thank you for having me back a third time. So my name is JD McCabe. I'm the author of a book called The Third Gift, My Dance with the Devil and Her Mother. There is a lot packed into the book. But I wrote the book. It's been out for about 3-4 years now. Any of the proceeds from the book are going to support several different nonprofits. But I wrote the book under the encouragement of my female therapist because she said there's not enough books, if any, about men on the other side in abusive relationships. But the timing of this tonight is perfect because it's the 10th anniversary of my release from my involuntary commitment. So yeah, 10 years ago, I was released, and I share that to say to anybody that's listening that's going through a difficult time, please hang on and just know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. There's good life on the other side. The good Lord is putting you through something because he wants to place you where he needs you to be, quite frankly. And so it was a long journey to get here, but through the love and support of many, many folks, I'm still standing today. So my heart is full of gratitude for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, JD. Love Bay, let me start with an apology for that noise in the background, which you may hear, that beep. I have a sensor. Batteries need to be changed in it. A technician has to come out and do it, and they're not scheduled to be here until Tuesday. So I apologize in advance.
I don't hear anything.
You will.
Yeah.
Only matter
I've been hearing it all week. And I mean, it's first I had to figure out what it was. And then once I did, I'm like, okay, I took care of it. And then it was like, I didn't know I was going to be put on a schedule. I'm like, see?
Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay.
But I apologize for it. It's being taken care of. We want to start with sharing some resources. As Jen mentioned, our nonprofit, Rise Out of the Ashes, Inc. If you want to support us, you can write a check to Rise Out of the Ashes, Inc. Our P.O. Box is P.O. Box 15. We are Drexel Hill, PA. Our zip is 026. You can also visit GoFundMe and look for our nonprofit, which is Rise Out of the Ashes Inc., and you can donate that way. The biggest part of what we do is the immediate funding, where we provide immediate funds to victims and survivors to support them with paying utilities, transportation, relocation from one place to another to ensure that they would be safe, to get medications, personal toiletries, and even to further education, whatever need that they may have that stems from the issues that they are dealing with due to their situation with domestic violence. So I'm asking that, Love Bay, you would help us to be able to continue to help those in need. I want to share Pastor Darius Daniels. He's a pastor of Change Church. His website is dariusdaniels.com. His YouTube channel is Darius Daniels TV. In the United States, we have the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Their website is thehotline.org. Their phone number is 1-800-799-7233. In the UK, we have information on male sexual abuse. It is Male Survivors Partnership. Their website is malesurvivor.co.uk. Also in the UK, the National Domestic Abuse Helpline. Their website is nationaldahelpline.org.uk. Their number is 0808-2000-247. In Canada, we have the Canadian Women's Foundation. Their website is canadianwomen.org, and their number is 1-866-293-4483. And with that, Love Bay, we move again to our topic on tonight, continuing our conversation on the third gift. And JD, I would ask you if you would revisit your story just for our listeners and viewers who may not be familiar. So before we go forward, if you could give us some highlights.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll skip through the good stuff. So I was the good stuff, meaning I was married for 17 years and then completely blindsided going into the 18th year. And essentially everything that she started to accuse me of doing, gaslighting, projection, her mother got involved, thus the subtitle, My Dance with the Devil and Her Mother. It would turn out that everything she was accusing me of doing, she was doing. So there was massive infidelity on her part. There was a hidden prescription drug addiction for at least 5 years that I could tell. And then the third gift, the title of the book, the first two gifts are my kids. They're now young adults. They're flourishing, and I couldn't be more proud of the positive choices they've made in spite of opportunities to go off the rails, because they endured this my daughter was during her high school years. My son was during his college years. But the third gift was the accusation that she made once we separated, that I gave her sexually transmitted herpes. And I smile and I can laugh about it now. But that day I was, knocked to my, good thing I was sitting down in the attorney's office when that accusation was made. But, I quickly processed every negative emotion you can imagine. And then gratitude rose to the top, believe it or not. That day, I'm like, oh, good Lord, you've smacked me across the face. You've let me know that my marriage was a lie. And she's been out running around on me. And I would later confirm that, as I begin to dig into 5 years of her medical claims, 5 years of her pharmacy claims. I discovered that she pretty much contracted every STD out there in addition to the sexually transmitted herpes. So there was a lot of discoveries along the way. The other discovery that I'd make about a year after we separated, I was experiencing during the marriage, I began to experience some significant health issues, massive weight loss, tingling in my fingers and toes, joint pain, intestinal issues. They couldn't figure out what's going on with me. And I would later figure out through a hair and nail test that I was chronically exposed to arsenic. So, not only was she trying to kill me, but then when she couldn't kill me, she was trying to destroy me, emotionally and mentally. And I was pushed to the edge. I literally was pushed to the edge. And without knowing that my kids needed me and having something to hang on to, I don't know that I would truthfully be here today, to be honest with you. The 9 days that I spent in psychiatric lockup, I don't think I covered that. But as I mentioned at the outset, today is my 10th anniversary of my release, but I would later discover that she set me up for that. So 2 days before my excuse me, involuntary commitment. She wrote letters behind my back to my physicians at the time. And it was 2 days later that I was involuntarily committed by the family practitioner, who allowed her to fill 600 days worth of amphetamines in our kids' names. So I would discover that down the road too. So when her miracle worker, as she called this guy, I would discover she was paying a physician cash for whatever prescription she wanted. He got in trouble with the North Carolina Medical Board, with the DEA. And so when that dried up, given our very broken medical system, she was able to find a psychiatrist that would write her whatever she wanted. Mm-hmm. And so in the book, all of this is laid out in the book, including, once we were separated, I would have to defend myself at a domestic violence trial. We'd have a 4-day alimony trial. So those 2 trials are in the book. So the book is very real. It's very raw. I've changed the names in a few locations, but other than that, it's as real as I could get. So it was a blessing to write, but it was a curse at the same time, especially as I had to re-listen to the 17 hours of the alimony trial and my character being assassinated by girlfriends that she resurrected from 8th grade that I hadn't seen in years, and her mother, and so forth, so on. So to sit there and be as stoic as I could be while people are just, filleting your character, and it's not true. So that was I had to re-listen to 17 hours of that to write that part of the book. But I'm glad that I've written the book. Again, I've been able to do a lot of good for several different nonprofits with it. I've been promoting it for 4 years now. I don't know how much longer I want to do it, but when I start thinking about not doing it, then something will happen. I'll get a message from somebody about the impact that the book had.
Yeah. Well, at least for tonight. So before I do ask my first questions, tell Love Bay, remind us where the book is available.
Yeah, the book is available pretty much everywhere, online retailers. So Amazon, Target, Walmart. If folks want to buy copies directly from me, if they're in the States, they can Venmo me at The Third Gift. It's $25, includes shipping and handling, and I'll sign the copies for them. And again, I'm donating a significant portion of the proceeds to several different nonprofits. I heard you mention the resources for the UK. I wanted to give a shout out to the UK and Australia. I've received a ton of support from the folks overseas. So thank you for that if you're listening over there.
Awesome.
But and if folks want to connect with me, they can find me on TikTok and on Instagram at The Third Gift.
That is amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Love Bay. Thank you for hearing JD. Thank you for allowing his story to do whatever it has done and is doing in your lives. So thank you, Love Bay, so much. So JD, what I wanted to do about tonight, well, at least the question that I have, what I wanted to start with, I wanted to talk about the support you received from your family.
Yeah.
So I wanted to first ask, when did your family or did your family realize that something was wrong before you said anything?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. And that's for your listeners. That's the one thing. And I would stress it on any platform that I've been on is if you're going, if you're going through something, don't isolate yourself.
Yes.
Please reach out to somebody, and you guys talked about the resources at the outset, but find a friend, find a confidant if you don't want to, talk to, one of these hotlines or one of these community centers or what have you. But I didn't tell anybody. They didn't get involved until I was involuntarily committed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I remember before they took my phone away, I talked to my brother and I said, I'm good. I'm good. You don't need to come to town. I lived 9 hours away. I was living in, North Carolina at the time. But yeah, in spite of that, 2 of my brothers came to town. It was at that point then that, they began to see what was going on, certainly with the involuntary commitment. And then, and as I look back on it, on the back cover of the book, is when I was, and I skipped over a lot, but my life was threatened by my mother-in-law on a beach trip. She threatened to kill me, just kind of out of the blue. And had I talked to my brother, Al, had I talked to anybody over the summer, that was 3 months before I got committed, they might have been able to give me some objectivity that I'd lost, So again, she was very effective at isolating me from family and friends and hollowing me out and making me feel like, okay, you're the reason why we're having issues. And the master manipulators are good. You know,
Yes,
gaslighting is a very effective tool, and completely hollowed me out. But that's when my family got involved, and they would become, especially my brother Al and his wife Jane, they would become my lifeline. You know, 24. They were available 24/7.
Wow.
If they didn't hear from me, they would call me to make sure that I was all right. He was there for me for the domestic violence trial, the alimony trial. You know, I spent a lot of time in Pennsylvania because I had also had my daughter alienated from me, which I forgot to mention. So I had lost her for essentially 2 years. So I had a lot going on, and my father's health was failing. So the good Lord piled it all on top of me all at once. But he also put a lot of people in my life to walk with me at the same time. So.
And so when we think about it, family and friends, they really can underestimate what their help and support means, or they can overestimate what their support and opinions may mean. But and I know you've already started, but could you even just talk to us about how important the support of your brothers were, just from a mental and an emotional aspect? Because I know, like, there are hours away, you know, that they don't live near, but sometimes just the mental and emotional support, like just knowing that they're there. Can you talk about just how important that is and how important that can be?
Yeah, it was life-saving, without a doubt. And I've told him and his wife and my family, I've told them unashamedly that, you know, had it not been for them, I don't know that I'd be here today, you know. And I would stress to your listeners, though, I think they know this, but maybe it bears repeating. They weren't there to solve my problems. They knew that they couldn't fight the battle for me. You know, they knew I had to get in the ring and take the punches, but they were there to support me outside of the ring. And I only use that analogy because I was a boxer in high school. But it was immense just to be able to vent, pick up the phone and vent and blow off a little steam, and just to have them listen, period. Not offer solutions, just to listen, reaffirm their love for me and their support. And it's crucial. So that's the thing I often think about is, for anybody going through a difficult time, I hope that they have a support system around them. And if they don't, within their family or friends or whatever, please lean on whatever community resources are available.
Yeah, I think what you said, how you described your family, is just absolutely beautiful. And, you know, Jen, I'll go to you for your thoughts, but I think what you just said was just wonderful, that they understood that they were not there to offer solutions, but to listen. That is so tremendous. That just, it means a lot. And I would even go so far as to say, you know, not even to trash your ex-wife, you know, or, you know, but really just to be there for you. That is tremendous. Absolutely. Jen?
Yeah. Jim, I'll cut you off for a minute if I could. I apologize so I don't forget. Your point you made there, Tia, was spot on, because I have a huge family. I've got 5 brothers, 3 sisters, a bunch of grown nieces and nephews. We're probably 40, 45 deep now, right? They didn't trash her. They didn't trash her mother. They knew where to find him. They knew where to reach him. They stayed on the high road. They said nothing. Now, the other side, of course, did the exact opposite. So I couldn't be more proud of the character of my family. Sorry about that, Jen.
No problem. No, I agree. I think it's so important. You know, a lot of people don't understand the mental place that you go to when you are in that survival mode, and then when you immediately exit it. And I would say that your brain is completely different. I mean, we know scientifically it is, but even just from like a social standpoint, you know, people aren't going to understand you in a way when you are kind of coming out of this situation. And the best way to describe it, I think, is that you're kind of thinking backwards in a way, like you're kind of upside down. And so things are confusing. And especially if you've been gaslit, kind of feel like you're questioning every move that you're making. Is this the right decision? What am I doing now? And so having a support system that is willing to simply be there to lean on and offer validation is so incredible, and something that not everybody gets.
Right.
And Tia and I are asked often, like, as family members, what can we do to support people? Like, I think I have somebody that's in an abusive relationship. What can I do? And we're like, you're not going to like this, but the answer is nothing. Like, you have to be there for them as in relationship, but you can't stop this. Like, the person has to stop it themselves.
Yeah.
But if you can commit to being there, even when it gets hard, that just makes such a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why the title of the book, if I might say, is perfect, because the third gift, it truly was a gift. God had to intervene on my part. Once we had separated, I had no clue what end was up. The other complicating factor with her was that she hadn't alleged, and I say alleged because she doesn't have it, but early in our marriage, she would allege that she had an autoimmune disease and she would be treated for it. And I would never question it. And I would never ask to see her medical records. You trust them, but it complicated things for me, because I would attribute a lot of what I started to see once I got out of the psych facility to her alleged autoimmune disease, which I would later figure out that she doesn't even have one. I mean, as we move forward with the alimony trial and subpoenaing medical records, and they in fact, the Mayo Clinic in Florida said the exact opposite. She doesn't have one. And if she does, she has a very minor form. But again, I never asked to see that. So I call it a gift, because once we had separated, I'll never forget the first day of our mediation. I mean, I figured, all right, well, we'll separate. We'll continue to go to counseling. We'll see where this thing goes. I'm going to work on me and become a better man, And God said, no, I'm done. I'm done. And your marriage is done. Had she never revealed the herpes, I don't know where I'd be today. So again, my heart is filled with gratitude every day for the man above to intervene, and I'm thankful, as crazy as it may sound, I'm thankful for the level of her greed and the level of her evil. The only reason she even played that card was that she was certain she had infected me. And we hadn't been together all that much, but 3 weeks before I was booted out of the house, we were together 3 nights in a row. So I'm certain she had thought she had infected me. It's the only reason she played that card. And I'll be forever grateful to her that she played that card. I don't know where I'd be today. I don't know where my relationship with my kids would be, because after all, her story was perfect. I spent 9 days in a psych facility. I had been misdiagnosed with bipolar 2. She had my daughter's ear, and then the icing on the cake would have been for her, oh, by the way, he gave me herpes. So had she never played that card, or had I tested positive, so I mean, I the depths of my gratitude it goes down to my toes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What I think is so interesting about your story, JD, is that it literally reads like a movie, right? I mean, people are like, does that really happen in real life? And I think we have this idea of domestic violence that it has to be that bad for it to mean something, or for you to be allowed to leave. And what you went through was horrifying, like, at every stage, and you're still trying to make your marriage work and be there for your kids. And I'm sure as a man too, I mean, as a woman, I still see this, but especially for men, I know it's harder. I'm sure you get a lot of comments and opinions on what people think you went through, and it's just crazy that it had to get that bad for you. And that she was so sure. The other thing that I think is so interesting is that, it's almost like again, I'm going to say movie, but it's almost like a movie villain, One thing that I think people, if that haven't dealt with an abuser, don't realize is the lengths they will go to get their way. And so, I say to a lot of people that are involved with abusers, like, nothing they do will surprise me anymore. They are capable of doing awful things, because as things escalate, as they get desperate, they are just having to kind of dig themselves more and more into their own hole and lie. And, they can't move backwards. They have to keep moving forwards. And so, ultimately she dug her own hole, and and she had to sit in it. And that ended up being your redemption, which is amazing.
Yeah, and then once the gig is up, right? Once the truth is revealed, and that's why she moved away. She moved away 2 weeks before my daughter graduated from high school. So they haven't seen her in 5 years. They don't talk to her anymore, and so they had to make that adult decision to just remove that toxicity from their lives. So I don't know if she'll ever reconnect with them. I don't know. I would support it hesitantly, but I don't. There's no value to it, quite frankly. And as somebody told me, she has no use for them anymore. So I guess and so maybe you guys have seen this, right? So they believe that she's never been diagnosed by a competent therapist, but they believe she has obviously narcissistic personality disorder at the highest level, probably, amongst other things. But they go one victim at a time, and once her father passed away, then I was in her crosshairs. And that's exactly when the subtle abuse started happening in my marriage. And then once I was removed, it was my son. And then once he shut her down, it was my daughter. So as people have said, she has no use for them anymore. So she won't come back into their lives.
Yeah. So JD, do you find that telling your story and dealing with your experience, is it becoming easier for you as you continue to advocate for victims and survivors? Or like earlier you mentioned, you get to that point of deciding whether I should keep, doing the book thing. Like, is it?
Yeah.
How is that for you?
No, it's energizing to talk about it, to be honest with you. But again, where my mind goes, Tia and Jen, with the 4-year piece is like, well, how much longer should you do this? A little bit of self-doubt creeps in, but no, it's been very energizing to talk about it. I enjoy coming on, platforms like yourselves. And again, thank you for having me on for a third time. No, I enjoy talking about it. It's therapeutic, and I've learned a lot. It's helped me to heal, to be honest with you. And I don't know if you both have found the same, but things that I had struggled with that I would bring up on other platforms, and I think we've talked about it too, is again, and I just said that she has no longer any use for them. And somebody enlightened me to that fact. They're like, no, they take one victim at a time. She has no use for your kids anymore. Because I struggled with, how could a parent walk away from their kids? She missed her high school, college, she got married in May, wasn't there. I wasn't going to allow her to be there, even if she wanted it to be. But I struggled with that, and somebody enlightened me, and it brought me even further peace to go, okay, if you look at it that way, then you go, all right, makes sense. And I've shared that with my kids. My son's like, I never thought of it that way, Dad. And I'm like, well, neither did I.
Well, I mean, I totally understand your experience. But first, Love Bay, I do want to say to our listeners and viewers, everyone is different. So every victim or survivor is not going to be on a platform like we're on telling your personal stories, and you don't have to. Right. Every victim or survivor is not going to share their story, not going to write a book, not going to speak at conferences, and that is okay. Yep. You may just speak to your next door neighbor or somebody in the neighborhood or a parent, at school, and you may be able to be encouraging to them. Or you may never tell your story to anyone. You may get through it, however you get through it. That's okay. But if you do come to a platform, if you do write a book, it's okay. If you are comfortable with that, if you believe that's what you're led to do, and you want to support other victims and survivors in that way, absolutely, that's awesome. But if you're forcing yourself to do it, if you're thinking, well, JD did it, Jen did it, that's what Tia did, so I have to, no, there's no pat form, no pat, answer on the healing process of how to get through it. So for me specifically, me talking about this, the radio program, my book, the nonprofit, all of that is a part of my healing process.
Yep.
Me being able to revisit my story and help other people, it does help me. That doesn't hurt me. It doesn't pull me backwards. If it did, I would stop. And what I've noticed for me, JD, and I think I was saying this to Aaron on last week. Now, when I tell my story, I find that I'm actually, and I'm not trying to make myself do it, but I find that I'm actually emotional now. Like there are times when I speak now, I will cry unexpectedly. And for me, I think that's, I've just come to a deeper place of healing to actually be able to feel and touch those emotions within me. Whereas I remember just rattling off my story like I was reading a report. But now I feel it with my words, and I just believe I'm at a place now. I'm safe enough and healed enough to do that. I wasn't looking for it, but it just happened, moving forward in my process. But yeah, for me to do this right now, talking with you, talking with Jen, being here for Love Bay, for me, it's a part of the healing process. And it's a wonderful thing. It feels good to be able to look back over those years and say, I'm not there, not physically, but I'm not there mentally anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not in that spot emotionally anymore. I can see the progress. That's an awesome thing. Jen, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. For me, it's been a super cathartic process as well. I would say even more than telling my story was taking domestic violence advocacy training. And I didn't do it to be a healing thing, but it really was. And kind of for the same things that you're saying, JD, I found out things about what I was going through that made me realize that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't alone. Having things broken down in a very clinical way made it so that I could say, okay, he's not unique. Like he's not this, master manipulators are good at what they do only because we are not expecting people that close to us to be manipulating us.
Right.
Most of their behaviors are very textbook. Most of them operate under the same guidelines. And once you start to recognize the patterns, you can realize that, they really are all playing by the same playbook. So, that was a super healing journey for me. And then, telling my story as well, it's been its own kind of journey. But I agree too, what you said, Tia, it isn't for everyone, but tell someone.
Yes.
Don't keep it to yourself.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I got strength from, even as I was going through it, living out of a hotel, living out of my car, whatever. As you know, there's storytelling builds community, and listening to other people's stories, because my journey was 5 years in hell. But listening to other people's stories at the same time, I'm like, I don't have it so bad. I survived. I'm out. I don't have it so bad. You've lost loved ones to this or to that, or you've been assaulted and what have you. It's what I call relativity. So if you get lost in it and think that, and I'm not saying I didn't have days of self-pity, but it was hearing these people's stories and that would pull me out of that to go, just stop. Don't stop feeling sorry for yourself. Because the other thing too, for anybody that's going through it, is the other thing that kept me grounded is knowing my biggest worry is my kids. Because I'm like, they're going through it too. They've been through it. They had their father in a psych facility, probably didn't understand why. And they're going through it. So it's like, it's not just me. There's an extended group of folks that are going through it. So just leave your self-pity on the shelf, as much as you can.
Yeah. So JD, as you're continuing to move forward, do you find, or have you found, that there may be an area or some things that are triggering and you just need to stay away from? And I mean, there are some things you don't know until you know. Like, right. And for instance, for myself, like, as much as I do for advocacy work, I can't be a hotline counselor for any of the agencies I work with. Like, I work with Laurel House and I work with the Domestic Abuse Project of Delaware County. And for DAP, I wanted to to be on call with the, with the hotline counselors. And so I was going through a training program, and I got a book. I think that book was about 4 or 5 inches thick, the training program. I read the first page and I couldn't do it. The words off that page were so triggering to me. Like the very first words I read, it was.
Do you recall what they were?
Yeah, it was a description of a violent attack. It just happened to be between 2 males, but it was just a description of a violent attack, of what happened, and what responses the counselor should have if someone called and this was their story. I couldn't do it. I couldn't even keep that book in my hand. So it's like, as much as I do in other areas, I can preach, I can teach, I can stand in front of groups. I couldn't do that training course, and I didn't know I couldn't do it until I tried to do it. So, as you do your advocacy work, have you found, like, are there specific areas that you need to stay away from, or is there something that you're just like, head first, I can do this, and I just focus on this area?
Fortunately, there's nothing, I don't think, that triggers me anymore. I think the biggest trigger for me with and the PTSD that I experienced was really my time in the psych facility. So first of all, happy World Mental Health Day to everybody, right? But it was thinking about the young kids that I was in there with that had legitimately tried to take their lives. So originally that would be triggering for me. The anniversaries of my time in there would be triggering, but like I said, I just crossed the 10-year mark, believe it or not. And it didn't have the same triggering effect that it had, 4 or 5 years ago.
And so I know you've mentioned the young people who were in a facility several times before.
Yeah.
So as you speak and as you advocate, is the mental health portion, is that part of your advocacy and your support work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. These were young kids that, legitimately tried to take their lives, and they didn't want to go home, but yet they're going to be discharged and be sent home. And so the recurring nightmare that I would have would be that they would show up at my porch at my house, with guns to their head, and there was nothing I could do about it.
Oh, that is interesting. That is just.
Then you wake up in a cold sweat and go, okay, that was just a dream. But yeah.
Jen?
Kind of along the lines of that, you did touch briefly on the fact that when you were writing your book, you had to re-listen to things, and that was a rough thing. I think, one of the things, again, that needs to be more talked about regarding domestic violence and really any incident of assault is the re-traumatization that happens when you do start to speak up. Because whether you like it or not, like, it's, especially at first, it's going to happen. And it may not even be sharing your story. Like, it could be people in your life that just don't believe you, or, want you to qualify your experience. So what has that been like for you, especially as a man walking through this journey?
Yeah, I haven't had any hesitation to do it, and occasionally you'll get some negative comments on the social media stuff. Some of them have reared their head the last week or so. A couple of ladies saying it's ignorant that I put my stuff out there. I'm like, well, what's ignorant about it? Anyhow, but I had no hesitation to share my story. I didn't have any shame about writing it. I did have some anger, but it was anger at myself, which I had to process. Anger at myself, meaning you're a reasonably intelligent guy. And maybe both of you went through this as well, right? How did I let this happen? How, especially when I was in the psych facility, I had no clarity on why I was there. It's like, how did I get here? How did our marriage get here? And then down the road, it's like, when I just started making all the discoveries I made, I'm like, how the hell did you overlook what that you thought was a burn mark that she told you was a burn mark from a curling iron on her neck? It was from a romantic interaction, I'm imagining now, because she had very short hair. So, but yeah, she would play it off like, no, I just burned myself with a curling iron. And so I look back on all the things that I missed and I go, how?
Well, see,
You
I
could have
think
avoided.
JD,
You could have avoided some of this had you not been
but
so
I
stupid.
think those were key words you said. Looking back,
Yeah,
and it's like hindsight is always 2020,
Mhm.
and so for me, I did go through that, but I didn't go through the questioning of myself until I was out of it, because when I was out of it, and then when I was able to process, when I was able to start healing, when I was able to start unraveling, all that had happened, that's when I started questioning myself. Like, why did I do this? Why did I let it go on for so long? Why didn't I see this? And why didn't I see that? And then for me, part of it became, when I did see this, why did I stay? When I did see this, when I did understand, when I did come to terms, why did I try to help him? Why did I try to fix it? But again, hindsight is 20. When you're in it, I just can't explain the hypersensitivity, the just living on edge, and especially when you're in a situation, your life is in danger, when you're operating on no sleep, no food, you're not eating. You don't do what you would normally do if you were in a healthy situation. If you were able to rest at night and go to sleep, if you're able to trust the person that's next to you, the person that you pledged your life to you, the decisions that you make in that moment would be completely and totally different. But again, I think the key words are, you start thinking about it after you get out, because when you're in it, it's survival mode. It's I remember days of just like getting through days and not actually remembering what happened in those days. Like I just made it from the morning to night, and then I made it from night to morning. Can't tell you what I did during that time. It was survival. It was also, and I think that is one of the what's the
defense
word?
mechanisms of the body and of the mind.
Mechanism, and that's one of the traits of abuse itself. Like, that's what happens. Like, you're just trying to survive, and you don't think about it until you're out of it, because you can't. Because if I take the time to sit down and analyze this, he might kill me in that moment.
Yeah. Can I ask you both, did anybody after you got out of your situations, did anybody come to you and go, yeah, I saw this or I saw that and I was concerned about this, but I didn't want to say anything? Did you have anybody do that to you?
Oh, yes. And I felt like, shut up, leave me alone. Like, I don't want to hear it.
Thank you.
Like, I don't need this. Okay. So you felt like you saw some things going on and you didn't say anything. You didn't try to help. Leave me alone. And I felt like it was insincere. I felt like, now that I've done what I needed to do for me and I'm trying to move forward, now you want to jump on the bandwagon. Leave me alone. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And so, Jen, same with you?
Oh, yeah. I had people that were like, I never really liked him. I knew there was something off about him the whole time. And I'm like, that would have been nice to know. You were at my wedding. So.
Yeah, you ate the cake and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I bring it up, because that's a message I haven't put out there consistently, but I want to put it out there more consistently. It's not the TSA message, but it is. You see something, say something. Because I had family members that would come to me and go, yeah, no, I knew she was a pillhead. I could tell by her eyes and this and that. And I'm like, she never said anything. You never told me. So again, that would be my advice to anybody that's listening. It may cost you a friendship or whatever, or you may piss off a family member or whatever. But if there is something in your gut that is concerning about somebody that you love, that's in a relationship, say something, say it privately, but express it, say it.
Well, and here's the other thing about that. They may not be in a place to hear it, but there may come a day that they've had enough and they've reached their limit. And when that day comes, you're going to be the person they remember and they're going to call you. And that's going to be when you are able to be helpful to them. Yeah. So it may cost you now, but it may pay off later.
Yeah. And JD, as you said, you say this truth privately, you say it in love.
Yeah.
But if you have that relationship with this person to approach them, then you do that, and you might risk losing a friendship. There might, but I would rather come to you in love, come to you out of concern, and talk to
Yeah.
you and share this. And if you don't speak to me anymore, I know that would hurt really bad, but I care enough about you to risk
Yeah.
that.
And I did it years ago with a buddy that came to me and wanted me to be the best man at his wedding. And it was the hardest thing for me to say is, and he was a best friend of mine. I can't support this. I can't stand up for you because I don't support you guys getting together.
Yeah.
And we lost that friendship for a while, and he lives in PA. So the distance has kept us disconnected, but we have reconnected. But he got divorced 6 months later.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it wasn't, I told you so, but it's like, no, I don't support you getting married, man.
Well, I mean, that's truth. That's honesty. That's support. Love,
Yep.
babe. That is what support a family and friends is. Don't come to me after the situation. Don't come see me after I've been in the hospital, after I've lost everything that I had. And then you come to me and say, I saw something all along that wasn't right. I don't need that.
Right.
That is to me personally, it was very insulting. It got on my nerves. And it was like, at the point when I did open up and I started saying, this is what's going on, you still didn't say anything. Like, you didn't even say, I'm confirming what you think and what you feel. I'm encouraging you. I didn't even get that. But when I was out of it, people wanted to come and just, oh no, that bothered me so badly. I
figured that was the case, but that's why I wanted to ask you both. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And it's unfortunate, and it is unfair with some of the responses we get. But in that, you do get to see who your true family, your true support system is made up of family and friends. And even the responses that you've gotten with people saying you shouldn't expose this information, you shouldn't share it. I was just having a conversation with an individual and I was telling them we have to tell the truth.
Yeah.
If first of all, if you have it in your heart, if you have courage enough to tell your story, then you tell your story. Nobody can edit your story. Nobody can make you change your words. You need to tell your truth the way that your truth happened. And I guarantee that your truth will support and help someone else. But when we're talking about domestic violence and when we're talking about sexual assault, you have to be real. You have to be honest. You have to use the words. You have to use the word rape. You can't say, you can't make it pretty. You cannot make any of this pretty. If a woman was assaulted and bones in her face were broken, bones in her body were broken, you have to say that. If somebody is bloody, you have to say that. If someone is raped, you have to say that. Because it takes away from the seriousness of the issue when you try to water it down because you don't want people to feel uncomfortable. So like we said last week, it's real easy to talk about cancer. It's real easy to talk about heart disease. It's easy to talk about, we want to raise money for the poor, but it gets hard when we start talking about abuse. We saw this man hurt this woman. We saw this woman try to kill this man, and in a horrific way, somebody who would douse another human being with gasoline and light them on fire. You can't make that pretty. You have to tell the truth because people need to understand this happens. That happens around the world. I've been contacted by women, their husbands threw acid in their face. It's a part of a culture. And in that culture, it's acceptable, but it should not be acceptable in society. It shouldn't be. Now, how do you make that pretty? How do you make that sound nice with a woman whose face is now disfigured because her husband threw acid at her? How do you say that in a nice way to not get people agitated? You can't do that. So I applaud you for telling your truth. I applaud you to keep doing it because you are not only helping victims and survivors, but I believe your voice is very important to support men specifically. It really is. So
I applaud
thank
you for that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I want to say again, I've said it before, but I didn't write the book to be about a men too versus me too, because I recognize that we're equal opportunity offenders. And the stat that, which is probably underreported, but the emotional and psychological abuse is split 50-50 between men and women.
Sure.
And I think men still are more physically abusive. At least the stats would suggest that. But evil has no gender. It has no race. It doesn't discriminate.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And I think all the stats are just, I don't want to say the stats are lies. The stats are incomplete.
I agree.
Because everyone does not report what happens for them for one reason or another. The same reason that individuals, have different reasons of why they stay in the situation that they're in. There are several different reasons of why people don't report. So I believe as high as those numbers are, they're still low. They're not telling a complete truth.
Easy.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Because there are so many people that don't even know that they were or are in an abusive relationship.
Yes, and I just had that conversation with someone as well. We were talking about education and awareness on domestic violence. Some people still don't even understand what domestic violence is. They don't understand that abuse is not just boiled down to I put my hands on a person, that person put their hands on me. No, what you say to me, how you treat me, how you try to play games mentally and emotionally, that is also abuse. And not only that, we have adults who don't fully understand that. We have children who are in elementary school and middle school and high school, moving on into college, who are in abusive relationships and they don't know it, with boyfriends and girlfriends and friends and in their little cliques and communities. They don't know it. So I believe, JD, what you're doing is helping to bring awareness to the issue, because we have to talk about it.
Yeah.
We have to. How do you not talk about a man being harmed in a relationship? Because it is real. It does happen.
Yeah.
Men are harmed by women. Men are harmed by other men. We can't put our heads in the sand and pretend it's going to go away, or that they don't need help. Those who do need help. We can't do it. So again, I applaud you in your efforts.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it very much. So thank you.
So we're just under the hour. So Jen, do you have a final question or comment for JD?
I mean, I have a lot of questions for JD, but I feel like
that means you will be back.
Gonna bring us over the hour. So no, I just want to echo what Tia said, your commitment to being an advocate, your willingness to come on my show and then 3 times on this show is just, it's fabulous. It's so needed. There are not enough men talking about domestic violence in general, let alone their stories. And, I just want to echo the idea that we just really have no idea what other people are going through. If you haven't been confronted by this, it's really actually difficult for me to believe at this point, after doing this work, that somebody can sit there and say that they've never been touched by domestic violence, whether directly or through a family or friend. It is so pervasive, and silence is violence. That's, so,
Silence is violence. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, and the system needs to do a better job. The system, I'm talking about the legal system.
Yeah.
You hear story after story after story.
Please.
That this person should have been in jail, but then he wasn't in jail, and they turned around and killed her. And
Well, and again, talking about the statistics, there's not even an avenue for most people that experience emotional and psychological abuse for litigation, at least not criminally. It's very difficult, and getting a PFA, forget it. Like, you're not going to be able to. So there are too many gaps in the system. And again, just a lack of education. So not to
Because
end it on a downer.
the system's flooded with it, though, right? You know,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think the system has become desensitized to it. The
Yes.
judges and the
Yes.
cops, and you become
Absolutely.
desensitized. It's like, here we go again. You know.
Mhm. Well,
Yeah.
so October, as we know, is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so JD, just being a male survivor, being an advocate, thank you so much for being here. I
You're welcome.
want to give you the last word of this evening.
Yep.
In Domestic Violence Awareness Month, what would be the words that you would leave Love Bay with on tonight?
Oh man, let's see if I can come up with something profound. There's a favorite quote that I love by Mary Oliver, right? So I'll leave your listeners with this. The quote is, "Someone I once loved gave me a box full of darkness. It took me many years to understand that this too was a gift." And so I see adversity as a gift. Now, I saw it as a gift, thus the title of the book, The Third Gift. I saw it as a gift immediately. I was blessed when she dropped the herpes grenade on me. But I think as you two very strong women, survivors yourselves, the battle is fought up here.
Mhm.
And so as soon as you can begin to see adversity or whatever you've gone through that you hopefully are out of now as a gift, the better off you'll be.
Yes.
The better off you'll be. And there are a lot of gifts that I've realized, once you get to the healing piece where the top gifts for me are, stronger faith, humility, you become humble, right? And gratitude. Those would be the big three: stronger faith, humility, and gratitude. And that's what I would leave them with, is if you look at it that way, that this is an opportunity to make a better version of me, and this is a gift, versus the victim mentality, versus constantly question, why did this happen to me? Instead, say, what can I do with it? What can I learn from it?
Awesome, JD. Thank you so much.
You're
And
very welcome.
I see my gift. Have to be honest, I didn't see it for a while.
Right.
Took a few years, but I see my gift. My gift is allowing me to do what I do now. So I thank you so much for everything you shared with us on this evening. Definitely, we want to have you back in 2025.
Okay.
Jen, thank you for being here as usual. Love Bay, please, you can get The Third Gift from Amazon, from any brick and mortar bookstores. It's online. You can also go to your website as The Third Gift, right?
Right. Thirdgift.com. Or again, if people want signed copies, they can Venmo me at The Third Gift, a flat fee of $25. I'll sign it and mail it out to them. So
awesome. Thank you both. Love Bay, thank you for being with us. If you want to catch up on previous episodes from our program, you can visit our YouTube channel, Suffering in Silence DV. We just thank you so much for joining Suffering in Silence with Evangelist Tia here on Love Beat. That noise just got me. On Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Love Bay, we are rising out of the ashes together, and that beep will not be here next Friday. Good evening.
Well, thank you, ladies. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.